Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back. This video is going to have a two-part lesson. First, I'm going to teach you the guitar parts by themselves, and then we're going to walk through the Logic looping session. I'm going to show you how to set it up and how to go through all the parts like I just did. So first, the guitar parts. Here we go. The guitar part, I obviously played on a 12-string guitar, and that's so I could simulate more guitars like the original performance from Buena Vista Social Club. But for this lesson, I'm going to switch over to my regular acoustic so it's easier to follow along. You have better expectations of what it should sound like. So let me play the opening part. This is the fingerstyle version of the song. Basically, you could just play this part with some variations, and this is a fingerstyle version. But here we go. It sounds like this. Okay, that's the loop. Let's walk through that. So we have a D minor and we're doing a slap with a bass kick. So notice on the tabs we have where those asterisk symbols are below the tab, that's where we have what we indicate with a kick. And we're just gonna do a palm kick here like this, okay? On the bridge, we don't want it to mess with the noise of the strings. We want it to be able to have that effect while the notes are playing out. Now, when you have notes at the same time as the kick, we're gonna do the backhand like that. So it's, okay? Okay, that's measure one. Then we're gonna go to G minor. Okay, so that's going to this G minor. It's really cool voicing. Finger it like this, and we're gonna go. Okay, and then have that walk down. Okay, once you get past the walk down, we have D, slap, F, slap. Okay, so that's that fingerstyle bit. Loop that, you know, you can just loop it indefinitely. The whole song is kind of like that. They add parts and other instruments and solos and stuff like that, but essentially that's the whole song built into those four measures. The next part that comes up in the looping thing is a percussion part, and I'm playing this. Okay, and let me show you that. So that just loops also for 4 straight bars. This is representative of 1 bar. So the count is all 16th notes. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. There's basically 3 motions with the right hand and 1 motion with the left hand. The left hand is always indicated with the giant X's on the tabs. Okay, and that's indicated for you to just kind of slap your fingers down like this. One of the reasons we do that is because if you're just doing, notice all the string noise you hear now. So we want to mute that a little bit. So it's easiest, and also we want to get some of this kind of slap sound also. It's not super important, but it adds to that 16th note groove. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So that's the left hand. The right hand has these 3 motions. So we have a kick, a tap, and a regular slap, a big slap. Okay, this makes a different noise than this, right? So that big slap is indicated with the 2 X's on the top of the tab plus the asterisks on the top. So the 3 motions we have: kick is the X and the asterisks on the bottom. That's left hand slap with the X there. Right hand tap, and then another slap on the left hand, and then right hand big snare hit. So all together slowly, it's like this: 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, make sure on this motion you're getting this really, really quick. Okay, it's not like you're hitting that hard. You're hitting on the side here. and it needs to be like a real fast, real light kind of touch, but quick. And I'm using these 2 fingers here, and just kind of like that, about that much energy. So at that point, what I did is I just enhanced the chords and everything else by kind of redoing the parts. So first I just do a chords only, and that's going to be like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that loops over the top of everything else. Okay. All these chords are the same as what we used before, but we're just leaving a lot of space. Another loop I did on top of that was to reinforce some of the other elements that were happening inside the performance. So we have this walk down, okay, and I wanted that to really stand out, so I did that part again. So that whole thing will be like this: 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. Okay, and then that loops. After that, we're building in some of the slide parts. Now this comes from the original song. They have this really cool slide part. I had to have it in there. So this part is really cool, very easy. We're just sliding from the 10th fret on the A and D strings to the 12th fret on the A and D strings. So we're just going. The slide starts on beat 4, so it's like 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 1 and 2, 3. And that's just another little fill that I wanted to add. Actually, that part of the fill was actually done with more drums, but the drums were tuned in a way that they were playing over the chords. The drum is actually playing the note D, but I couldn't add that at the same time as. So just in the blank space, I played F, F, G, G. But that's just to keep the same kind of energy level as the original. At the end, I did like a little improvised type solo. Some of the parts weren't really improvised, and that was the melody part. And that sounds like this. I'll just play it real slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that's just simulating the same melody that we played before. Sometimes I'll play variations like this. Then there's kind of like an improvised type solo. For that part, I've listened to the solo of the original a few times, and I'm trying to get the overall vibe of the solo, but the main bits that come from that are these double stop phrases. Okay, so all you need to know is that we're basically harmonizing the D minor scale and these double stops, sometimes in thirds, sometimes in fourths or reverse fifths. But what we have here is, let's take this, we're at 6 and 5, slide that up to 8 and 6, and slide that up to 10 and 8, and then sometimes plays 2 tenths. Sometimes he actually plays this shape too. So if you kind of want to hear it going down, and then if you keep going, okay, you play these double stops over the entire progression except for when it gets to the A chord. At that point, you need to switch to an A double stop. And so the two options here mostly are this one and this one. So you'd be something like this. Okay, so notice at the end of the phrase, I ended on one of those A's. Also, something maybe like this. Right? So this whole thing is over the D minor and the other chords, and then finally, at the end, we're ending on an A. The whole thing there is meant to be improvised, and you should just know about those shapes and know that when it comes to the A chord, you got to change to play an A sound. Next, we're going to jump into the second part of the lesson, which is how the whole session is organized inside Logic. So I'm going to change my cameras, and I'll see you guys there. All right, so here's the plan. I'm going to redo everything I just did, but kind of talk my way through it so y'all can reproduce this on your own. Or just even play something different using the same strategies. That's the main idea here. So let's take a look into the session here, and this is what I ended up with. over here. And a couple things I want to keep in mind here. I've turned the master volume down so that you can hear me. This isn't something that you would normally do. Normally you just never mess with this part here, over here. But it's just so I can talk over the top of it. It's just because of the way that I'm doing this recording. I'm doing a screen recording, which is also recording my voice. Moving on, let's talk about the setup first. The different tracks that we have here that I've set up. The cell loops, the cell lengths for certain tracks, and then also setting up reverb or extra things like that down here. So first thing, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks. The first track I recorded was just this loop. Okay. Now with this style looping, you have to have something going because it's not, you can't just play a free loop and then play on top of that. So in order for this to work, you have to play with some kind of metronome or backing track or something that's on the grid. You can't just do a free loop like a lot of you are used to with your regular button press stomp box loopers. I prefer to have some kind of MIDI drums clicking as opposed to the metronome, and I just set that up before I even get started. Let's talk about the tracks that I've added now too. All of these other tracks here that are in blue, track 1, track 2, track 3, 4, 5, and 6 are recorded from my microphone. So these are just basically loops stacked on top of each other. And so I also set it up in the order that I want to play all the elements. So when you first open your session, you got to make sure that the tempo is right. Check the tempo here. And also you got to make sure that all your original setup stuff is correct as well. I can't go over all the setup stuff. This is already a really long video, but this is assuming you can get inside Logic and kind of get this grid thing going. That's where we're going to start with this one, okay? So the tracks are labeled with what they are, but also kind of instructions for me, because that's what I'm looking at when I'm about to play the next loop. So I don't have to remember what's happening next. I'll label the track guitar melody plus chords half. So this one is actually just the fingerstyle melody part that I played. The next one is percussion guitar. So I knew just right away it's percussion guitar. And then just the chords only part, walk down and fills, shaker over here. And then slide and fills here. And then that's the whole thing. On top of all that stuff, I'm gonna do like a little solo that you saw at the beginning. So the next thing you gotta do is make sure that the cell length and the recording length are set to the correct amounts. So I'm going to show you how to do that here. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to actually just move all this stuff over to the side so that we can kind of redo this from scratch. Okay. So now you'll notice that we have basically an empty set of cells with these set of cells that look different. Okay. So what is that? So what you have to do, that's the cell length and stuff and recording length over here. So what you have to do to set that is make sure that none of these cells are selected. Like if you select a cell, it's outlined in white like that. So make sure that none of them are selected. And come over here and change the recording length on this left side to cell length. It's going to default to automatic, which is terrible. It doesn't work for anybody. I don't know why they have it set like that. But change it to cell length. And that makes sure that every loop that you create will play for however long the cell length is. In this case, I wanted it to be 4 bars, so I changed it to 4 bars. If I change that to 2 bars, then all of the cells are gonna be recording for 2 bars, okay? So what about these other ones that are different? So I didn't want all the cells to be recording for 4 total bars because some of the loops were shorter and I didn't want to do a shaker loop for 4 bars. I just wanted to do that for 2 bars. Same thing with the guitar only chords here. I only wanted that 2 bars. So as you can see, what I did was, if you select this cell for guitar only 2 bars, and I come over to cell length, and then I just drag that down to 2 bars only. And do the same thing here. Select that cell, drag it down. Now these I'd already kind of set up. Now a faster way you can do that if you want, you can just highlight all of these at the same time and then change it to 2 or 1 or whatever, right? And for now, we're just gonna undo that. Okay, so now all the cells, if I select any regular cell, it's gonna be 4 bars cell length, okay? Except for when I select one of these, it's gonna be 2 bars cell length, okay? The MIDI loop I'm just gonna drag that over, okay? So for that, just use your metronome or record something. It basically, what I have is just this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay. So this is what the metronome would be clicking. 1, 2. Okay. So that's what I'm playing on top. So then what you want to do, that's playing. You come over here. Now I'm going to go to the iPad. I'm going to select the first track, make sure it's record enabled. On beat 2, I'm going to come in and try to play the fingerstyle melody part. Now I've got this down pretty quiet. Let's see if I can raise the volume here so I can actually hear it. Hopefully that doesn't mess up our audio stuff. Okay, but I got to be able to hear it. Okay, so remember, I recommend to start loops or start the click on beat 2. Now this beat 2 happens in a lot of places, like here, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1. Click. We'll do it on the next one. Well, actually, we'll wait 2 more. Okay, here it goes. So 1, 2, 3. Here we go. And so now the loop is playing. Now, one thing, I'm just going to stop it real quick. One thing that you might be wondering is when you're hearing me play, you're actually hearing this twice because you're hearing what I'm recording and then also from the session. So when it loops, it's going to be much quieter because the way that I'm recording it, you're hearing what's coming through the microphone also as well as what's in the session. So I've turned the session down so that you can hear me talk and also what I'm playing on top of it. Okay, so it's not going to sound exactly like the first performance did because I have to adjust it so I can talk through it. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's get it playing again. So now both of those parts are playing. Now what I'm going to do is just go down the line and play the next one. So let's keep going. So the next is the percussion loop. Okay, so once we're ready, we're going to hit beat 2. Oh, I want to have this playing also. And when I'm playing this percussion loop, I'm really listening to the MIDI Latin percussion because that is right on the grid. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now here's another really awesome trick. If this track is selected right now and I just come over here and hit Q, it quantizes it. So now it's even a little bit more perfectly matched to the grid. Now it's not gonna work unless you get it really, really close to the grid already. So I might not recommend that for everybody, okay? Let's keep going through everything. Actually, I wanna address something right now too. Before I'd set this up, I'd actually set up a reverb send on this percussion guitar track. So what I did for that is I came down here to where the buses are. See this bus 1, and I create bus 1, okay? And then that sends, like, makes an auxiliary track over here where I put a reverb. So now you can hear how the reverb, the snare hits are like extending out longer, right? And if I turn that off, you'll hear what it sounds like. Like it's real, just clicks, right? And that reverb makes it sound really cool. So I set that up on the aux send, and now we got that going. As you can see, I've actually already sent some of these tracks, the shaker and the slide fills, to that reverb also. And that's part of the pre-production, okay? So let's keep going through. So the next part is chords only, 2 bar. I wrote that right in the title, so it helps me remember. Let's see if we can record enable. That time we were able to. Great. 3, 4, now chords. Okay, now it's just playing 2 bars, so it's already looping that, right? Now at the end of the loop, I always will kind of pretend like I'm playing the next loop again, or not really pretend, I'll actually start the loop physically playing. That helps it be more cohesive in sound. If I were to just stay on that last chord and then magically it jumps to this chord, that's not very human sounding, right? Okay, so next I'm gonna add those walk down and fills. We talked about that. So make sure we're on the B2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and it's just to enhance what was already been played. I just wanted that to be stronger, so I played it on top. Next is gonna be shaker. Now this is set up again as a 2-bar loop, okay? So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go. Now, I am shaking the shaker like way over here, even though the mic is off camera, like right there. If you can see, it's like right off camera right here. I want it really far away because I don't want the shaker to be so loud. Like if you can hear, this is really loud. So I am backing it off the mic. And also, if you can look on the tracks over here, the shaker, I pulled that down. And also bus 1, it's sending to the space verb. So I didn't want the shaker to be too loud. Now it's pretty quiet. Okay, finally, we've got slide fills. So select that, record enable, boom. Able to do it this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now you got the slide fills. And again, that one was set up with a bus going to that space designer. Now again, now that we've got all the parts filled out, if I turn the reverb off, that's what it sounds like. Reverb on. You can just kind of hear everything a little bit better. It's got more of a vibe to it. All right. So then on top of that, you do all the solo stuff. You just solo as long as you want, use those strategies that we talked about before, but that's how you build the loop. I think the important thing is like getting the session set up correctly before you start. Now I just want to talk about some bonus tips that are definitely going to help y'all out if you're getting into this live looping stuff. So you might have wondered why I have all these extra loops here I'm not even using. Well, the reason is because when you're first doing it, you're not going to get everything right the first try. So, for example, let's say like this. Let's say I like messed this part up. So I'm going to record this one, and I don't want to hear really anything else except for this. Right? I'm going to record the top one, and I'm going to make a mistake and show you what you do. Check it out. Again, I cannot record enable it. If anybody knows why that's happening, that'd be great. But anyways, okay. Record enabled it there. So I'm going to make a mistake here intentionally and show you kind of what you should do if you mess up. 1, 2, 3, 4, we go. Now on that one, I didn't do enough kicks. I wanted to have it like a little bit more like this. So what would I do is just immediately, 1, hit the one right to the right of it. Okay, that time maybe it was like too much kick, so I'll restart it. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. right? And you keep doing that as long as you need to until you get a loop that looks good. So when you're first practicing this, you're gonna have these loops that go, way to the right, and you might have that loop playing with like a loop here, and other things like that. Okay, second thing I want to talk about is quantizing. Now, you heard me say quantizing earlier on the percussion loop, and you're probably thinking, well, can you quantize everything, and should you quantize everything? And the answer is yes, you can quantize anything, but no, you shouldn't. I'm going to show you why you shouldn't. Now, this loop here, it's okay. Maybe let's try this loop actually. Maybe that's too close. Okay, so this one here, we'll try quantizing this one, and what you'll hear is that it gets super wonky, like really, really, really fast. Okay, so listen to this. Okay, so it doesn't really work in all situations. So we're gonna undo that, right? Now, why is it doing that? You basically, you have to be close enough for it to quantize in 16th notes. Also with audio, it's really not that great about picking out where the transients are, like the start notes of everything. And so it just kind of guesses, and sometimes it stretches your audio out to where it has all those weird effects. Let's see if it sounds better on this loop. Okay, we'll quantize this one. See, it really super messed up. It sounds terrible like that, right? So my general advice is to not quantize anything except for percussion loops. Okay, so let's listen to the percussion loop just by itself. That's with it quantized. Or actually, no, yeah, that's with it quantized. If I turn the quantize off, you can hear that it's pretty close already, right? It's almost on the grid exactly, but if I was a little bit off, it starts getting wonky like real fast. So when you quantize drums or percussion, the algorithm can pick up where the transients are more easily, but still you have to do a pretty good job of getting the percussion going like almost perfectly first, especially if you're quantizing to 16th notes. If it's something slower and you can quantize to 8th notes or even quarter notes, that'll give you a better shot at doing it. But I would kind of stay away from quantizing things unless it's a percussion loop first, and then also making sure that you can actually do it pretty good first also. Percussive loops, I think they need to be on the grid as much as possible, if not exactly on the grid. That's really ideal. Everything else is going to be slightly on and off the grid, right? All the playing parts, so it's still going to have a very human feel, but the percussion staying perfectly on the grid is going to keep everything together more perfectly. Now, that being said, listening back to my unquantized percussive guitar part, it was already pretty good, and you have to have it very, very close for it to work. There's a lot of information on this one, and it's complicated. I'm going to do more lessons on this looping stuff, but I want to hear your guys' questions. Where are y'all getting stuck? I'm working on this style of looping with almost all my private students now. We've studied a lot of fingerstyle guitar, and this is kind of one of the next steps that you can take to keep enjoying playing new stuff and things like that. So a lot of my students are doing that, and we're going through the questions that they have. But I want to know the questions that y'all have. Like, what place are you at? Like, are you able to get any loops in at all? Like, do you even know what this is? It's really complicated, and I didn't go through the initial setup steps. There's a lot of you out there that are curious about how to get just initially getting it set up, things like that. Let me know, and I can make some other like kind of beginner style videos on that. But there's a lot of potential in this, even though there are problems. There's a lot of potential, and it certainly is a lot of fun. I've been having fun going through this and learning about it and sharing it with y'all. So that's it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.